Hello, my name is Harrison Stafford and I work for Georgia United Credit Union, and today we're going to be talking about teaching the value of a dollar and why that's important. So our seminar objectives for today, we're going to talk about why children in grades K through 8 need to learn about money, what motivates children to learn about money management, how children learn about money, how to use goal setting, budgeting, saving, employment, and investing as teaching tools, and how to use an allowance as a teaching tool. So these are, again, most of the topics that we're going to be going over today, and a lot of this stuff is going to pertain more to elementary and middle school students than our older students, or children, I guess. But really all of this information is pertinent to all of us. So let's move right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about money values here. So what do you personally believe? 78% of parents say that they talk to their children ages 8 through 14 about money management, and at least somewhat often. And 82% of teenagers say that they learned about money management that they had learned from their parents. So you can see a discrepancy between those two statistics there. But a lot of times parents come to us and they ask and they say, well, where do I even begin? Where do I start talking about money values? How do I even get into that conversation? And what we try to always say is use your own opinions as a starting point for discussion with your child. Be prepared to explain your beliefs and or modify your expectations depending on your child's maturity and needs. Talk a little bit about teachable moments here. A teachable moment really is any time that your child's focus or interest is focused. So be ready to respond to your child's curiosity right away. Talking about circumstances, so getting cash from an ATM or using your debit card at the store. These are times that you can explain how that function actually works, or explain to them that you had already put money into your account at an earlier time, and that's why you're able to withdraw cash from this fancy machine, or that's how you were able to swipe this magical card and purchase candy, that type of thing. Attention, so that their attention span more specifically, stop teaching your children as soon as your child's interest is satisfied. We never want to kick a dead horse, metaphorically here. So you can revisit this subject at a later time if you get a chance. But once we've got that point across, we don't need to keep driving it home again, because that attention span goes away very, very quickly. And then 2, look for interest. So look for opportunities to teach your child while watching TV or on a family vacation or another event. It may be, again, you may be with your child out in public and they say, Mom, Dad, what's this fancy machine, the ATM, that gives you cash? How do I get cash, or how do I get a card like that to get that? And then you can use those things to use what you know to explain that. But just be on the watch for your children's interest. So we're going to look at a couple statistics here on the next couple slides. But this question says, how much do teens typically spend? Is it $50, a little over $50 a week, $217 a month, or $2,600 per year? What do you think? Well, the answer is actually all of the above. So teens spend a whopping $143 billion, and that's with a B, each year. $143 billion each year, and that's according to a study from Forbes that came out earlier this year in 2020. We need to make sure, obviously, that our children, especially those K through 8, learn about money and the value of a dollar, because they are the targeted consumers, and their spending power continues to increase significantly every single year. If it's $143 billion in 2020, can you imagine what it's going to be in 2030, 2040, and so forth? I can promise you right now, it wasn't $143 billion each year for that age category in 1994. So it's just that much more important that, first of all, we educate ourselves, but we also learn how to have these conversations with our children so that way they know. So talk a little bit about that. We just now discussed how your children, especially in those younger ages, are the targeted audience for a lot of these different forms of media. But this question says, how many hours a day does the average child, or your child, spend with the media? And so the media could be described as anything as TV, music, audio, computer, online, video games, print, movies, that type of thing. So the answer here is actually E, 7.5 hours. And so over the past 5 years, young people have increased the amount of time that they actually spend consuming media by 1 hour and 17 minutes. So it used to be 6 hours and 21 minutes. Now it's 7 hours and 38 minutes. Just kind of put that in perspective. That's almost the time that us adults spend at work each day. right? 7 hours and 40 minutes basically is just barely short of it. And worst yet, these young people have gone from using it 5 days a week now to 7 days a week. So a lot of times they have access every day of the week. So I'll ask another question here. It's not on this slide, but how much time do you think teens spend with media a day? So that number is actually 9 hours a day. 9 whole hours. So they've got to be on that thing. I mean, just from the time they get up to the time that they go to bed, using their media, and that's just an average. It's just, with social media, obviously, is a great thing, and these different mobile devices that we have. But again, all these ads typically are geared towards children, and the TV programs and other media ads that we may see are targeted towards these people. And if they're on or accessing this type of media 9 hours a day, I mean, that's a lot of times that they see, these different forms of advertisement. So what percentage of parents here involve their children in back to school discussions? Kind of move right on through here. The correct answer on the slide here is actually A. So only 28% of parents have created a back to school shopping budget with their child. Only 28. And only 15% of teens say that they've ever created a back to school budget shopping list with their parents. So it's just, again, another one of those things to kind of put into perspective and really drive home the point or show the importance of why we need to talk with our kids about this type of thing. So now we're going to move on a little bit to about what motivates children to learn about money management and how they learn about money. And so their children are a lot like us. So they're driven. They may be goal driven. So the desire to reach a goal. So most of us go to work every single day, not just because we love working or just go for the joy of working, but we want to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Right? That income helps support ourselves and our family, and it also allows us to enjoy different qualities of life. And two, it brings income to help us achieve our goals if we have other ones. Children are also driven by a desire to master a skill. So humans, we have this instinctive need to apply new skills, and mastery brings pride and a sense of accomplishment to us. So children, again, are the exact same way. And then we have the desire for independence. I know whenever I was younger, all I wanted to do was grow up and be able to do things myself. And from what I can tell, that's not going to change anytime soon with these other young children. But they want to be able to do things for themselves. So maybe that's at least until they realize that they made the wrong decision growing up too fast. These students and our children, if they have a goal in mind to buy a video game and they stick to it and they want to say, Mom, Dad, I've got this, and, support that and show that you're proud of them. Now we're going to move on to talking about how children learn about money. So the three big ones here, obviously, that you see are by example, by choice, by mistake. By example, observing adult models. What does Mom and Dad do? Do Mom and Dad pay themselves first and make sure that they save money out of each paycheck? Do you also let your children know that that's important? Do they take part in family decisions? So if that's, what movie are we going to go to watch, or what are we going to eat, or can we, do different basic things like that? Do you involve your children? And then two, assisting. So giving your children the responsibility is a way to reward them for demonstrating skill and maturity. So if they have siblings, do they assist their siblings with like different consumer tasks or practice with them? Do they in turn become a role model for the other siblings? But these are just, again, some of the more important ones here. Oh, but another thing on example. So we talked a little bit about using your debit card earlier, but one of these things could be a credit card. So when you're using a credit card, you explain to your child that you're borrowing money, and if you don't pay it on time, that you'll have to pay interest, and there's other negative implications of that. But making sure that you obviously explain that to your child, and you yourself also, pay your bills on time. The next one here, by choice. So setting personal goals. Do your children set goals for themselves? So maybe that's they want to buy a video game or a toy or new shoes or something along those lines. Or the book fair is coming up and they want to buy a book. Set a personal goal that they're going to, how are they going to plan to reach that goal? Well, I'm going to take out the trash and I'm going to do the dishes and I'm going to mow grandma's yard or whatever it is. And then two, growing to maturity and freedom. If they do follow through, they set that goal, they plan to reach that goal, and then ultimately they complete that goal. Um, you do you acknowledge that? Do you show that you're proud of them? How are they rewarded in that? It's important that, and then two, do you increase those privileges for them? And by mistake. So this is perhaps one of the ones that is looked over the most, but I would argue is one of the more important ones. So do we analyze the hard knocks with our children? So do we avoid bailing them out if a child chooses to spend their money unwisely? So hard knocks early on in life cost a lot less than later on in life. So if they make buy an expensive fad item or they bounce a check, are we right there to bail them out every single time? Again, it's important that we use these things as an example of how to teach them about it. Are there consequences? So if a younger child decides to spend money on a cheap toy and it breaks soon after you purchase it, don't buy them a replacement. Because if their money is limited, then they need to think about the quality and the decision that they do to buy. And then two, for modifying plans, so back to that expensive fad item, whenever your child's run out of money, or maybe they're a little bit low on money, do we talk about, is there a less expensive option that still has good quality? Or is there a free option or an alternative to going, maybe that's going to the movies? Can we go to the park, or can we watch a movie that we already own? Things like that. Now we're going to talk about, making that teaching time fun and engaging. So the research has shown that there are many, first of all, benefits to playing games, but kids are more engaged in the activities and the content is reinforced, and the positivity is increased when they're doing this. So maybe you can use Monopoly in the Game of Life. These are some of the more common ones known to all of us, or maybe if you're familiar with Financial Football and Wise Pockets that are done over the computer, you can use those as well. But we can use these games as ways to teach them about how to manage their money and where does your money go, and then factoring in, kids and stuff like that. And then another big one that we are a huge partner and sponsor of is Junior Achievement. We absolutely love Junior Achievement and everything you do. So they do. You may have heard of Junior Achievement, and if you have, maybe you haven't heard of J.A. Biztown or Finance Park, but I would strongly encourage you, if you ever get the opportunity, to volunteer there, because this is where they give students real life application to these things. So they give students, a different life scenario. So it may be you are a teller or a branch manager at a Georgia United Credit Union branch. This is how much you make. Are you married or are you not married? Maybe they're married and they have 3 kids. Okay, so now they've got to pay to feed not only themselves but all 3 of those kids, and then their insurance, and then what do they use for transportation? Do they live in a home, an apartment? So they at the beginning of everything, they have all this money. They're like, wow, I'm rich, I've got a ton of money. And then they see all the different bills coming in, and they're like, wow, I don't have as much money as I thought. So it's great teachable moments for these students, and we want to, again, if you ever get the opportunity, make sure that you volunteer, because you'll love it and you'll come away with an appreciation for everything that they do. Now we're going to move on to talking about what percentage of parents give an allowance, specifically that 8 to 14-year-old range. So the answer there is about half. B, 48% of parents give their children a weekly allowance. Obviously, the further up as you move, the 11 to 14 range receive greater allowances. But again, these are just some of the teaching tools that parents use. They are not the only teaching tools. Moving forward here, we're going to talk about the other teaching tools. So personal goals, we'll talk about needs versus wants. So children need to see the difference of what they have and what they'd merely like to have. So teach this by sharing the reasoning and choosing among alternatives of your money. So we talked about that earlier. And then 2, explain what a SMART goal is. And if you don't know what a SMART goal is already, it's the goal should be useful, but the SMART is specific, measurable, adjustable, realistic, and timely. So if your goal hits all of those points, it's probably a pretty good one, right? And then 2, if you've written something out and you've said your goal, and you've talked about it, and you've went through, those 5 little things to decide where that goal falls in each one of those things, you're probably a little bit more likely to follow through and actually achieve that goal. Now moving on is a budget. So do we talk about spending and saving with our children? So without coaching, children can fall into the lifelong habit of mindless spending, and that is something that is very, very difficult to get out of. And then two, as far as saving goes, if you never save or if you don't start at an early age, it's going to be really difficult for you to set aside that money later on in life. So planned spending ensures that your expenses are less than your income. All right, and that's what we want. So it results in your children typically being able to save and set aside for other goals that they may have. And then a little bit more on spending. So is it something, have we made a decision not to spend, right? Have we looked at alternatives and we've said, well, maybe I'll save it now. And then price versus value, again, going back to that cheap toy. If you don't have enough money to get what you went into the store with, don't settle for something cheaper, especially something that you even, if you even have the slightest inkling that it may break. Just have those discussions about price versus value with them, and try not to bail them out if they make the wrong decision. So allowance. So we're going to talk a little bit about earned versus entitlement. So some parents believe that a child should earn an allowance. However, the purpose is to teach about money management. And so that's really up to you on how you teach that. But we want to try to avoid our children feeling entitled, like they deserve that. Again, they maybe have them do chores. So, we see here in the picture, a kid is mowing the lawn, or maybe there's 5 days of the week, they've got to come home and make sure that they do their homework, and they've got to make sure that they do the dishes and take out the trash, or they got to make all A's or all A's and B's. Again, it's your home. You decide what it is. Talk about, work. So at home and in the neighborhood, that kind of goes a little bit into what I just said about allowance, but chores. Again, maybe your child is a little bit older. They're not quite driving yet, but they offer to start mowing the lawn of other people, and they're at home. It could be, again, just their basic chores to be able to do this and teach the importance of it. And then two, compounding interest. So this is another one that's kind of interesting, and the next slide will kind of help explain it a little bit better. But looking specifically at investing. So here's the graphic that I was talking about, the value of saving early. And again, the younger, the better that we have these conversations. So let's say that your teen puts $1,000 of his summer earnings from mowing the lawn and doing the dishes and all of his chores, and maybe he's tutoring and just killing it this summer. Saves $1,000, puts it into a Roth IRA for each of the 4 years from age 15 to age 18, right? So 15, 16, 17, 18. And he stops and never puts in another penny and lets the money grow until he's age 65. He will have $107,000 at age 60, right? So over the period of a decade or more, the stock market typically has average earnings of more than 10%, and so we're assuming that 10% here looking at this graphic. But let's say that your kid waits until he's at 25, and then he starts putting away $1,000 for each of the 4 years until 28. So again, 25, 26, 27, 28. Has the same 10% average earnings or whatever, and stops at 28, and that account continues until age 65. He's just going to have a little bit over $54,000 or $54,000, so a little bit over $50,000. So the bottom line here, what we're trying to get across is, if you start at a young age rather than an older age. So again, this is just the difference in 10 years, 15 to 25. Excuse me. You can double your savings come retirement. So a lot of times, we don't think about retirement until we're a little bit older, or at least that's what a lot of kids think about. They're like, I'm 15 years old. Why do I want to think about retirement? But that's perhaps the most important time to think about retirement, right? And see, $107,000 for age 60, just $107,000 at age 65 isn't a whole lot. Think about what the damage and the money that you can really save up if you've got a regular saving plan, or if you have a regular retirement account and you contribute. You can really stretch those dollars. All right, so money issues. Talk about fines, penalties, rewards, bailouts, cash advances, credit. On the fines and penalties side of things, it really, if you don't using money for punishment and reward risks emotional connections that interfere with learning. So again, to the fines and penalties side of things, defeats the purpose of giving a child money so he or she can learn about how to use it properly. Rewards, that undermines the value of accomplishment being its own reward. So instead of fining for bad behavior or paying for good behavior, find punishments and rewards that match the actions. Okay? Let's see here. Bailouts. Again, we talked about bailouts. If a child has run out of money, throughout, whether that's their fault or not their fault, because maybe it's theft, something like that, that may be fun to help them out with that. However, giving money to make up for bad spending decisions teaches that there's no consequences, and that is not something that we want them to continue to think or really hold close to them into adulthood. Cash advances, it really is kind of a bailout in itself too. So if a child isn't able to manage their income properly, and they're like, well, Mom, Dad, I know that you just paid me for my allowance this week, but I really want to go out with my friends and for that next little pay period, can you just give me an advance on my my weekly allowance, so that way it can I can go out with my friends. We want to avoid doing that, because that again undermines the value of planning ahead, right? So if your kid is blowing their money throughout the week, and then all their friends have saved their money and want to go out, we're teaching them the wrong thing here. And then two, credit. So a child who's earned a substantial income has demonstrated their ability to keep promises and might be ready for a small loan for a productive purchase, such as buying a lawnmower for a summer business or things like that. So giving them credit in itself is not a bad thing, but we want to make sure that we hold them to that. Again, we're not going to go and collect and take everything or keep our kid in a bind, but we want to make sure that they understand the importance of borrowing on credit. So what's at stake here? So after leaving the 8th grade, basically your students or your children have 4 more years remaining before they're expected to be into adulthood. So these things will affect their confidence, their self-reliance, and their ability to support themselves and their families. So really, all the stuff here that we've talked about comes into these 3 little bullet points. All right, so after high school, they're adults, say they go off to college, they get a good degree, they're hardworking, they made mom and dad proud. What percentage of these students come back to live with their parents? And this answer will probably surprise you. So the answer is E, 80%. So you think that you've got rid of them, and then they move right back into the basement. This is something that a lot of places now are calling boomerang kids, right? They left the home nest for a period of time, but are coming back. So 80% of these students are returning home to live with mom and dad after graduation. And most of the time, these parents are providing support in a lot of ways. So 50% are providing housing, 48% are helping with living expenses, 41% are aiding with transportation costs, so paying for their car and their gas and their insurance. 35% are providing insurance coverage, whether that's again health or auto. 29% are handing out spending money, so literally giving them money to fund money after they've graduated and presumably have their own job. And 28% are helping out with medical bills. So again, this just kind of a shocking number there. So wrapping up here, we're going to look at a checklist. Are you ready? So do you understand why children need to learn about money? Do you know what motivates children to learn about managing money? Do you understand how children learn about money? Do you plan to use some of the teaching tools learned today? Do you know how to use an allowance as a teaching tool? And do you know where to go for help? So hopefully you can check yes to all of those. Resources for parents. So again, work with Georgia United Credit Union here. We're much more than a bank. Obviously, we do a ton of things in the community, and a big part of what we do is financial literacy. Part of what I'm doing here today. But we have credit union services, books, different types of where we don't necessarily have books, but credit union services with us. You can go and look for books, for resources. You can go to online resources. We do all types of seminars. We do things from money management, understanding credit, understanding debt, preventing identity theft. There are a ton of things that we do, but we are your friends here. If you have any questions at all, please reach out and contact us, and we'd be more than happy to help. And two, again, if you have any questions, I know I just said this, but let us know what we can do for you. You can call any of these numbers down here at the bottom. You can go to our website. You can reach out to us online, or you can drop into literally any branch that we have across the state of Georgia, and everybody will be ready to help you and be more than happy to assist you in anything that you need. So I just want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate you for listening to me today, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.